Everybody, welcome. We are in a series called Lesser Known People of the Bible, and today we're going back to David's era, 2 Samuel chapter number 18. Of course, David is not a lesser known character, but the individual we'll talk about today his name is Ahimaaz. You'd spell that Ahimaaz, and all of a sudden we're thankful for John and Robert and James and names like that, aren't we? Ahimaaz. So 2 Samuel 18, we're going to pick up reading in verse number 19. But I want to give you a little bit of background before we start reading, and we're not going to read any of this. There's another place where Ahimaaz is mentioned prior to 2 Samuel 18. I think it's actually chapter 17, possibly. And if you recall, we were speaking, I can't remember who we were talking about. I'll tell you the story and then maybe it'll jog my memory. The pair of Jonathan and Ahimaaz. David was running from Absalom. Absalom had invaded Jerusalem. Oh, it was Ahithophel, Bathsheba's grandfather, we were talking about. And David was trying to confound the counsel of Ahithophel when it came to Absalom. And so David had one of his men side with Absalom as a double agent. And while this was all going on, that agent got some information to two men. One was Jonathan, that's the son of Saul. Is that right? I don't know. Maybe I'm not right about that. The other one was Ahimaaz. Okay, so basically they're messengers and they're running information back and forth between David's double agent and David himself. So that's where we first see Ahimaaz, besides just a genealogical record of him. The next place we see him is here. Now, what's happened is Joab, David's general, pursues after Absalom and the army there. Now, Absalom's a part of the force that's coming to find his father and coming to defeat his father. David had given explicit directions to Joab, his man in charge, to not kill Absalom. But if you know the story of Absalom's demise, he's riding on a mule and he gets to an oak tree, and Absalom had very, very long hair. The hair gets caught in the branches of the oak tree. The mule keeps walking, and now Absalom is hanging by his hair from this oak tree. And so Joab shows up, and a couple of his men are there, and Absalom's still alive. And Joab asks one of the men, "Why didn't you kill him? Why didn't you cut him down and thrust him through with the sword? I would have rewarded you for doing that." And the man tells him very wisely, "I'm not going to lift my hand against the king's son. In fact, I remember him saying, 'Don't kill him, don't hurt him, keep him alive.'" So Joab takes 3 darts and he runs them into the heart of Absalom, killing Absalom. So now someone needs to go tell David what's going on. The king is not present on the battlefield. He's not where this action is going on. And so he stays back. And that's where we pick it up. Absalom is dead by the hand of Joab. The other men would not kill Absalom. And now someone needs to go and tell David this message. Verse number 19 of 2 Samuel 18. Then said Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, "Let me now run and bear the king tidings, how that the Lord hath avenged him of his enemies." So Ahimaaz is going to run. Israel didn't use horses. And so they're doing battle on foot. And if you're going to get a message, you need a sprinter, a long distance runner, a cross country kind of guy. And he's going to run. So Ahimaaz says, "Hey, let me go tell the king." And notice how he phrases it: "The Lord hath avenged him of his enemies." Well, Absalom is an enemy of David. In fact, he is the enemy here. And so verse number 20, Joab said unto him, "Thou shalt not bear tidings this day, but this day thou shalt bear no tidings, because the king's son is dead." So Ahimaaz knows Absalom is dead, But Joab tells him, "You're not going to be the one to tell him." Verse 21, then said Joab to Cushai, "Go tell the king what thou hast seen." And Cushai bowed himself unto Joab and ran. So Joab tells Ahimaaz, "No, you're not going to be the messenger. Cushai, you will be the messenger. Go tell him." Verse 22, then said Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, yet again to Joab, "But howsoever, let me, I pray thee, also run after Cushai." And Joab said, "Wherefore wilt thou run, my son, seeing that thou hast no tidings ready?" And so Ahimaaz asked Joab again, "Please, let me run after Cushai. Maybe we can show up together." Now, the truth is, Ahimaaz was faster than Cushai, and he just wants to be the one that tells the king the news. It's a little bit of an ego thing, a little bit of self-glory. And so he tells Joab, "I want to run also." And Joab tells him why. He says, "Thou hast no tidings ready." Basically, what are you going to say to the king? So what we're understanding here is that Cushai has a bit more experience. He's a bit more seasoned than Ahimaaz is. And we can see that in Ahimaaz's eagerness to get where he wants to go. Ahimaaz wants to just get out there and be in the spotlight, but he's not prepared for it. "But howsoever," said he, verse 23, "let me run." And he said unto him, "Run." Then Ahimaaz ran by the way of the plain, and here's a problem, overran Cushai. So Joab basically, he stalled enough. He doesn't think probably that Ahimaaz can catch up to Cushai. So in order to get him out of his face, he just says, "Run, go, get out of here, do whatever you want to do." And so Ahimaaz actually passes Cushai. Can you imagine being Cushai trucking right along and then all of a sudden looking and seeing Ahimaaz pass you? And David sat between the two gates, and the watchman went up to the roof over the gate unto the wall, and lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man running alone. So David's in this tower, and he sees, by the way of the watchman, someone coming to deliver a message. And the watchman cried and told the king, and the king said, "If he be alone, there is tidings in his mouth." And he came apace and drew near. So David knows that if this guy is on his own, no forces with him, he's probably got a message. And the watchman saw another man running, and the watchman called unto the porter and said, "Behold, another man running alone." And the king said, "He also bringeth tidings." So now David thinks he's going to get two different messages here, and the truth is he is going to get two different messages. He thinks perhaps the first messenger has one message, but the second one has an updated message. Verse 27, and the watchman said, "Methinketh the running of the foremost is like the running of Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok." So Ahimaaz is even known for his style, perhaps his speed. And the king said, "He is a good man, and cometh with good tidings." And Ahimaaz called and said unto the king, "All is well." And he fell down to the earth upon his face before the king, and said, "Blessed be the Lord thy God, which hath delivered up the men that lifted up their hand against my lord the king." So Ahimaaz's message is positive in his sight. All is well, he says. Those men who've revolted against you, they have been delivered into your hand. God has brought justice for you. But then David asks, verse 29, the king said, "Is the young man Absalom safe?" Now Ahimaaz knows that he's not. Joab just told him the king's son is dead. But David asks specifically. And Ahimaaz doesn't have the experience to deliver this message to the king properly. And Ahimaaz answered, here's Ahimaaz's answer, "When Joab sent the king's servant, and me thy servant, I saw a great tumult, but I knew not what it was." So Ahimaaz is lying to David. He says, when I was sent, there was something going on. There was a fight happening, but I don't know what happened. The king said unto him, Turn aside and stand here. And he turned aside and stood still. So Ahimaaz, he's got nothing to say. He doesn't know how to break the news to David that his son is dead. So David basically says, You're doing me no good. Go stand over here. And behold, Cushai came, and Cushai said, Tidings, my lord the king. For the Lord hath avenged thee this day of all them that rose up against thee. So that's the soft way of breaking the news, right? Tidings, my lord the king. The Lord hath avenged thee this day of all them that rose up against thee. Well, you know that means Absalom too. And the king said unto Cushai, Is the young man Absalom safe? And Cushai answered, The enemies of my lord the king, and all that rise against thee to do thee hurt, be as that young man is. So he doesn't just say, Your son is dead. He doesn't say, Joab killed your son. He doesn't tell him how it's done. He breaks the news to him in as gentle a manner as he can think to do. Is Absalom safe? The enemies of my lord the king, and all that rise thee to do thee hurt, be as that young man is. Well, there's no other way to interpret that. They're all dead, is what he's to understand. And that's the best way to break this news to David. How does David respond? Verse 33, And the king was much moved, and went up to the chamber over the gate, and wept. And as he went, thus he said, O my son Absalom, my son Absalom, would God I had died for thee, O Absalom, my son, my son. And there's a lot of emotion packed into that verse, isn't there? And we can see the heart of David here as he expresses his sorrow in the loss of his son. But we're not here to talk about David or Absalom or even Cushai. We're here to talk about Ahimaaz. So what's Ahimaaz's trouble? Ahimaaz didn't realize that it takes time to grow into a certain place. There is some areas of life that only come by way of experience and seasoning and wisdom. And I'll tell you, I know I'm a bit of a Peter personality. Peter in the Bible, the apostle. I can be very impetuous. I can speak before thinking. I can really stick my neck out there sometimes and say things that after I say them, I a bit regret. Here's the thing. Peter walking on the water. I preached on him on Sunday. Peter wasn't quite ready to walk on the water. He thought he was, but he wasn't quite ready, and so he began to sink, and Jesus told him, You have little faith. And so that's what Ahimaaz's problem is. Ahimaaz, instead of just staying humble and staying meek and waiting for his turn to come, decides, I want to be the one to run and tell the king this news. And so after thinking that Cushai has enough of a head start, Joab tells him, Go ahead and run. And he takes off running, but he doesn't have anything to say when he gets to the king. He's basically sidelined. Step over here. And if I'm not mistaken, there's nothing really else mentioned about Ahimaaz. Let me pull it up real quick. Only 15 verses mention his name. After chapter number 18 here, he's not mentioned again. Let's see here. He's mentioned in a genealogy in 1 Chronicles, 1 Kings 4:15. Ahimaaz was in Naphtali. He also took, this is just another genealogy. So you got two stories about Ahimaaz in the Bible. The first story is when he and Jonathan are sending the message to David, and then the other one is this. Could it be that his haste and his desire to be in a position that he wasn't yet ready for caused him to just be pushed aside now? And nothing else came of that. Perhaps it was others who pushed him aside. He's not ready. He doesn't know. Forget him. Or maybe he just said, you know what? I made a fool of myself and I'm never going to do that again. And by the way, it's better to make a fool of yourself over and over and over and never quit than it is to make a fool of yourself, be so ashamed that you never try again. You got to get up, dust yourself off, and try again. Wiser, more meek and humble. but you try again. And so that's the story of Ahimaaz. It'll be your time when the Lord deems it so. Just let it come naturally. Don't rush the washing machine. All right, that's all that I got for you today. We'll be back tomorrow with another lesser known person in the Bible. Thanks so much for watching. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.